Had you ever heard of Sarah Winchester before you were approached with this project?
No, never heard of the house, never heard of Sarah Winchester.
So what did you think when you...
Well, I was amazed that I'd never heard of her because it's such an extraordinary story. Extraordinary, wonderful, American story. I think only in America, actually. Or possibly maybe it had to be in a new country because it's, there are no rules, and that's what's so wonderful about Sarah and about this house. There are no rules. She's not following any rules or any traditions, or, it's so full of mystery. Mm-hmm. So much is known about it, and here's the physical manifestation. We can literally walk through it and see it and touch it, and yet it's so full of mystery.
And when you say it could only be in America, do you mean because this is a place where people reinvent themselves by moving west, or because it's about guns?
A combination of all of those things. A huge fortune. The resources, the labor, the raw materials, the amount of wood in this house is incredible. Yes, that I don't think any woman in Britain, even if she'd inherited a great fortune in the Victorian era, could possibly have done this.
Do you think she was escaping something, transcending something?
There are so many
atoning
theories.
For something.
Yes, I mean what's so fascinating about Sarah is it could be all of those things, any of those things, or something completely different. But we do know she lost her beloved husband and her baby at a very young age, just when her life, I'm sure, seemed to be absolutely a glittering, unbelievable fortune. She'd married a very wealthy man. It was completely a love marriage. Mm-hmm. And suddenly it was all gone, and this beautiful future was gone, and she was left alone, isolated. And then this house starts to be built. So, you have to think that there was a connection there.
Yeah, but there was a step in between, right? She was advised to come west?
Yes, for her health. Yes, that's right.
Oh, it was her health.
I think
it was not a spiritualist who...
No, well, again, there are many theories.
Yeah.
But I think it was one of the reasons she needed to be in a dry climate. So her husband, and she was very frightened of that because her husband had died of tuberculosis, and tuberculosis was very prevalent in those days. Mm. So whether it was a spiritualist, whether it was a health thing, so full of mystery, the whole thing.
How did you choose to research her, and how did you settle upon your portrayal of her?
Well, obviously I had to be guided by the script, and our script makes certain decisions about Sarah that are a part of the panoply of observations of her, of understandings of her. There are many, many different understandings. Was she a Rosicrucian? Was she actually a straight down the line Christian? Was she haunted? Was she crazy? There are so many different understandings of her.
Do you have a sense of the answers?
Our film makes one particular decision, but it's only one out of many.
What is the decision that the film makes?
It is that basically she is haunted by the spirits of the people who've been killed by the Winchester rifle.
And so this is...
And that is a theory.
A manifestation of the guilt?
Not so much guilt as empathy with. And yes, a certain amount of guilt that if you have made a fortune out of death, you have to pay the price. You have to pay a price for that. You have to pay a psychological price. You have to pay a spiritual price. And that's understandable, I would guess, for a Christian. Thou shalt not kill. And your fortune has been made from killing. And I can only imagine that the people who make fortunes to this day from selling armaments of all different descriptions have pause at some point, especially if they're Christians, to think, am I going to pay a price for this?
Do you know what I find is so interesting and unique about how she chose to deal with that is that most people, and there are examples historically of people who have begun foundations to get guns off the street or to promote nonviolence. So she took a particularly inward path.
Yes.
Rather than trying to make the world better for other people.
Yes, it wasn't the era for that so much.
Maybe not.
I mean, it was the beginnings of prohibition, and the very, very early beginnings of feminism. It wasn't really the era for that. I mean, all of that was so new. The Winchester repeating rifle was invented by her husband, an engineer. It was so fresh off the draft page, and the results of that were so recent. But I think at heart she was an artist as well. You feel that in this house
because of her extraordinary explosive design sense.
Yes, exactly, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the fact that if this building reminds me of anything, it reminds me of the Watts Towers.
Yes.
It's a personal architectural construction that is it's not going to an expensive architect saying, I want the most beautiful house that's ever been built. And you've seen houses, Victorian, of wealthy people of that era, and you see the houses that are been built, and they also have a huge entrance and a magnificent staircase and enormous great rooms, and then right at the top there's a little warren for the servants. This house is not that at all. This house is just, pieces added, just like the Watts Towers, sort of architectural, artistic, personal, a personal artist's sort of understanding of making their imagination tangible.
How did you get to know this house? Have you spent much time in the house itself?
Only yesterday. I mean,
Today,
I
was that the first
experienced it
time?
on set in Melbourne, where they recreated portions of it. But the actual house I'd never seen until yesterday.
So what do you think?
I'm blown away by it. Well, who isn't? You're completely lost within 3 minutes of being in the house. It would be so fun just to be on your own and just to be able to just
wander
I'm
around.
back here again. How did I get back here again? It's fantastic. But also each room is so full of detail, and you can spend an hour in each room just looking. Look at that. Just here in this room, look at the corner of that on the floor. Look at the floor, or the floors, the fireplaces, the ceilings. Every ceiling is extraordinary.
Did you get a sense that there was joy in the enterprise? And do you portray it in that way at all? Or?
There's beauty. There's art. It's arts and crafts. It's the ultimate sort of arts and crafts. The moment of decoration and art, and I love that phrase, arts and crafts. And this is very much an arts decoration and crafts, the craft of building.
And ultimately, do you think the house and its tiny, detailed, rabbit warren-like spaces are a metaphor for her head or her emotional life?
I don't know. I think that we can. I think what I love about her is that there are no answers to that. The way there are no answers to those two extraordinary quotes sitting behind you. They're so obscure, those quotes.
I don't know what they are.
Yeah, well, they're from Shakespeare. This is from Richard II,
Okay.
a play that's never done. This is from Troilus and Cressida. They're obscure plays. They're obscure quotes from within obscure plays.
Was she known to be a Shakespeare?
And how do we translate? One says, wide unclasp the tables of their thoughts. What does that mean? And the other says, these same thoughts people this little world. There are so many different interpretations of that. And there are so many different interpretations of this house.
Yeah.
And there are so many different interpretations of Sarah. And that's what I loved about playing the character.
I would have thought Lady Macbeth washing her hands, would have been
Yes,
sort of
but it's not
metaphor for
exactly
this place,
out.
Yes.
Spot. But no, it's not that. It's not that. It's much deeper philosophical thought.
Yeah.
I thought, wide unclasp the tables of their thoughts. In other words, I think that means don't take things at face value.
Yeah.
Think deeper, think wider, think more imaginatively, be open in your thoughts. Wide unclasp the tables of their thoughts. So, it's philosophically a fascinating house.
Yes, it is. I have to think that any movie made about a gun fortune right now at this moment in our history has modern relevance, current relevance. How do you feel about America's gun laws?
Well, I'm a Brit, so anyone from any other country looks at America with, amazement and curiosity and incomprehension. But it's America, and I love America.
And
So, I can be like, what? I find it extraordinary to me that Americans are prepared to sacrifice something like 300,000 Americans a year, a massive number they're prepared to sacrifice those people. And in a very anonymous way. They don't have those people who died by gun violence, whether it's suicide, whether it's accident, or the tiny proportion that's to do with self-defense. It's much more to do with other things. And I think that those spirits are not given, they're not given the hero's return the way, people who are killed in war are in America. They're not given a recognition. Their deaths are put under the carpet. Let's talk about that.
have you ever
And
shot?
that's what I think the tragedy is, actually. Yeah.
Have you ever shot a gun?
Yes, of course I have. I was in
Hunting?
Red.
Yeah. good
I
point.
shot a sniper gun. I shot a
That's
Gatling.
right, yeah.
It's great.
I was going to say, how did it make you
I
feel?
mean, I love target practice. I do.
Yeah.
There's something, whether it's a bow and arrow or a gun, whatever it is, there's something about aiming and trying to hit it that is a great metaphor for our lives, So actually, I
Yes. Are you with them in the movie? The
No,
rifles
no.
themselves, they play a part at all?
Oh, they do. The rifles do. Yes, they do. Yes. I mean, the other thing, they're very beautiful things. Especially a beautiful Winchester rifle from that era is a very, very beautiful thing.
Beautiful and destructive.
Yes. That was my own feeling when I shot guns for real. Was how easy. That's terrifying. It's just too easy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's too easy.